Hi, and welcome back to episode 2 of the FMCG In Crowd, the value series. In this episode, we're exploring price as a driver of choice. Along the shopper journey, there are various considerations that affect our product preference. So thinking about this journey, I first asked my guests, at what point does price become an important part of the shopper's decision?
Hello, my name is Rachel Young and I'm the Group Net Revenue Director at Nomad Foods, which operates under the brands of Birdseye, Aunt Bessie's and Goodfellas in the UK and Ireland and Findus and Igloo across Europe. We operate across 13 markets and my role is to support each of the markets to execute net revenue strategies effectively. Price is always a consideration. It's always important to some degree, even for, the least elastic categories. So you take petrol right now, people don't really notice if it moves from 121 to 122, but if it suddenly jumped up to €5 or £5 a litre, it suddenly would fundamentally change the behaviour and the requirements of how you operate. So even in, I think in some cases, if the question is, when is it the first consideration in a shopper journey, then you're really talking about the more commoditized markets with very little differentiation. And that's why we really need to think about what are the attributes shoppers place value on and talk to the shoppers in those words. So the more distinct you are, the more value the shopper sees in you, and the lower the priority of the absolute price point, perhaps. Even in commoditized markets, you do see variation in how shoppers perceive value price equation and how elastic they are. So bananas, very inelastic. Grapes, much more elastic.
We're looking forward and saying it's coming. Price is going to be even more important, but it pinpointing how and when seems difficult at the moment. Are you kind of foreseeing that as well?
Absolutely. We talk a lot more about affordability and the need to balance, our role as net revenue managers in that context, for sure. I think the important question is, and the important point is that what people want to spend in totality, is much more important to them now. But that doesn't necessarily mean that every single product people are going to scrutinise or the price on. So, we saw in the last recession that the average cost of a cup of coffee went up because people started buying them from Costa and from other outlets, and people traded up at home as people kind of indulged those smaller habits without the total cost of outlay on all of their nice luxury experiences being too high. But equally, we've seen research, and we have research that says that 40% of shoppers are going to try and spend less on their groceries in the next 12 months. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to trade down from product A to product B, but it's a reliance on promotions and it's choices about which products to choose.
I'm Kevin Nolan. I'm the Net Revenue Management and Commercial Strategy Controller at Bayer. I've been in revenue management for about 14 years now and very passionate around sustainably growing revenue. We talk a lot around shopper journeys. What point does price come into it? For me, ultimately, right, price is at the start of every single journey I could ever consider, right? I get paid in a certain amount per month and I have a load of bills to pay. After that, I have some money left to make, well, I won't say millions, but hundreds of decisions every month about things I'm going to purchase, things that my wife will go and purchase. Ultimately, price is right at the start because we do have a pretty much fixed budget for that every month coming in with what we want to spend money on. So when we go for a big grocery shop, you have a bandwidth of, pretty much what it will cost you based on what you buy that week. Should we choose to spend that however many quid on 10 meals or on 30 meals or on 2 meals is fundamentally up to us at that time. I think price and that budget are inextricably linked and they can't not be. We're constantly making decisions around price and value all the time, everywhere we go. That for me is really where my job, our job as brand owners, ensure we can maximize our share of that budget, right? How do we get that? What do we offer you? But how can we talk above and beyond, as I've said earlier, that price piece to make you want me, to make you want to put it into that basket? For me, price is fundamental because of that budget that anyone has, and they're constantly making these small, low-level decisions. I mean, it's back to that point. If it's something I buy regularly in a category I buy a lot of, I am more well informed. If it's a category I buy once every 2 or 3 years, suddenly my price or my value piece is completely gone, right? I don't know what I'm picking up here. I'm making a decision based entirely on something else. Could that be price? Absolutely. Could it be the fact I'm going to use this once ever? Therefore, do I buy the cheapest or the most expensive?
Actually, budget consideration right at the start of the journey is another big factor. And do you think that it's at that point someone decides what retailer they go to rather than kind of doing price comparisons on individual products to kind of push them to a retailer? Or what kind of mix plays out there?
Yeah, I think ultimately, look, I can comment on my own shopping experiences, right? Because then I'll speak from an element of my own position of knowledge. I have 3 big mainstream retailers that I would go to supermarket wise. They're all similar distance to drive to from where I live. They all have car parking available, and one is a hard discounter, the other 2 are big established top 4 grocers. It is quite an interesting point. If I'm going to buy something that's quite staple that I know and want to get a high value, therefore low price transaction from, I know I go to my discounter. If I've got anything a bit more, say, quirky, I'll say niche stroke small that I might want to get, I have to go to one of my other big retailers, right? That's me where my choice and what I want to look for goes into it. So I think a lot around what's the category I'm going to buy. So is it a household staple that I know and I'm happy to take a just as good quality product at a lower price from a hard discounter, versus where I might want to go and look at a broader range of a category, or more of a browse and have a great selection, or again something a bit quirky, a small niche that won't be stocked in that discounter. That for me is the piece that influences my choice.
I like the fact that you're kind of talking about the car parking. Almost, what's my shopping mission? Is choice or actual speed of shop more important to me? And the kind of factors that you often forget about in terms of car parking, etc., etc. Like I don't know about yourself, but going to the local discount retailer, you often find that parking there is a little bit more troublesome, and you can't actually get your petrol there as well. So you kind of that kind of mission mindset, and the fact that you will switch between different retailers based on that mission rather than based on, oh, they've got this offer on in store, I think is really good insight.
My name's Phil Morgan. I work for Premier Foods. I've been with the business for 8 years, and my job title is Commercial Planning and Execution Director. So that means I cover off strategic pricing, a commercial planning team, customer marketing team, and a field sales team.
Thinking about when somebody's taking their shopping journey, from the very beginning to the actual point of purchase, where do you think price is actually considered during that journey?
I think it depends on the journey. I'm not trying to duck the question at all, Dan, but I do think it depends on the journey. It's something we've been thinking about for a while, actually. And you go, well, if you just think about the easy example of a distress purchase. So I've run out of something, it's a midweek meal. I've run out of something, I've got to nip to my local shop. Well, because my kids need to have something for dinner. Well then is price less of a concern? You're not saying it's entirely out the window, but is it less of a concern than if I'm planning to go to my local big supermarket because I've got to get a big shop, because I've got a big Sunday lunch for the family planned on the weekend. I need a lot of stuff. Well, maybe because I'm buying more and I'm looking for quantity and I've got to manage to an overall budget and I'm more planned about it, I would say probably price is more of a consideration in that, on average, across the board. But so I think price is a factor of shopper missions or occasions that are being within the mix, I suppose, and I think that But that's not to say that if I'm walking up to my local corner shop or convenience store, I won't disregard price entirely. I still want to be sure that I'm getting value for that purchase, but I'm probably slightly less conscious of price in that decision making. Whereas, like I said, the other example is it would be higher up my list of priorities.
Before I summarise, I am obliged to remind you that pricing is set at the discretion of the retailer, and so any conversations about price have to happen in that context. Now back to the conversation. From one perspective, we know that price does have its biggest effect at point of purchase, because this is where relative comparisons can be made. But we have to remember, price is always a consideration, even at the point of planning a shopper mission. Now this is why strategies such as price match are really important to retailers. It's because they set the perception of price within that retailer. At IRI, we generally find that less than 1% of price change effect is actually driven by retailer switching. So if suppliers are going to participate, they should do so with the best knowledge of the risks and rewards. Econometric modelling is the most robust way to forecast volume impact and prepare for those tough negotiations, even to the fine detail of understanding what the gaps and the thresholds are for various price points. Rachel pointed to a piece of research that suggested that 40% of shoppers are going to reduce their spend on groceries in the next 12 months. Now, obviously, that means that price is going to be a more important factor. But also, as we discussed, there is still space for those small indulgences in people's baskets. So optimising things like good, better, best options within a range assortment will also be an important factor as businesses build their plans to deliver growth in the future.